So if you'd like to speak on a matter that is on the agenda, we ask that you wait until that matter is called, so your comments could be properly considered at that time. We have a 5-minute limit per person. It's in the best interest to be concise and on point. Any persons who wish to comment can submit a card to our assistant over here. Do we have any written comments?
Yes, we have two. First is Michael Schultz.
Okay, but well, Mike, you're gonna make a statement, right? But you want to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have somebody else who wants.
Yes. Scott Rundle.
Okay, all right. And as we've said before, we'd like to make sure that the comments are civil and respectful. We're neighbors, we're a small community, so we like to be neighborly to each other. You know, we may disagree, but we don't want to be disagreeable, okay? So we'll go ahead and Michael,
Thank you.
and then Scott.
We are a small community. That's what we stand up for. Recently, LACSD has had 2 open board seats to fill. And our residents of Arrowhead Woods have had 2+ years of open discussions regarding LACSD. One of the topics or questions that seems to always come up was, why doesn't the main author of the website Arrowhead Woods Informed, Mr. Garen Vartanian, run for the board of LACSD? The answer to that question is, he doesn't fulfill the simple criteria necessary to be allowed on the board of LACSD. To be allowed on the board of LACSD, you must be a resident to serve on the board. Period. Mr. Vartanian is not a resident. And to our local reporter, Diane Ostrike, we would ask her if she could go ahead and confirm our research and write about how Arrowhead Woods Informed and its main author is not a resident of our community. Also, LACSD has 2 battles to fight: PFAS and Arrowhead Woods Informed, which permeates with a cancel culture mentality. We, the mountain community, do not want cancel culture to cancel our mountain culture. This worldwide public website begins with a lie by declaring that the main author is a resident. The lies have continued with 2 years plus of accusations of LACSD being negligent in some fashion, form, or way, which has never occurred. The residents of our community of Lake Arrowhead will continue to expose this public website. The fact is that Arrowhead Woods Informed caters to and serves outside investors, not our community. Mr. Garen Vartanian gives advice on social media how an Airbnb property owner can sue a full-time resident of Arrowhead. Also, the main author wants to end our living forest and wildlife by promoting not to reinstate our 100-year-old CC&Rs, which have protected our living forest and wildlife for over 100 years. Also, we do not want our drinking water to be put in the hands of outside investors that don't use our drinking water. We trust the work of LACSD's board, GM, staff, and employees to protect our drinking water at all costs. Also, we, the residents of Arrowhead, will bring to light if that does change. We will not come second. We'd like to thank LACSD for hearing our opinions and frustrations, and we wish everyone a safe and upcoming happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Scott?
I'll say congrats. Congrats. You guys just killed the old boys club. Thank you. Okay, they accused you of it, didn't happen, but We have a great board. We're excited.
We called it an improvement, Scott.
There you
An
go.
upgrade.
Exactly. Let me put my glasses on so I can actually.
No,
see.
no offense to Steve. and,
Yeah, I know, it's all
but,
good.
you know, there was maybe one too many attorney on the board.
Congrats on the new board members. It's a strong and well-rounded board, and ratepayers and customers are happy. So we know you guys are gonna make some great decision and I pulled what's of interest to us. And to LACSD, I see you're working on obtaining some land that the church owned in negotiations, whatever that means. I applaud your efforts for the foresight, and I hope you put some very discreet, large wells on there that fit within the watershed. I have no idea what you can do with it, but obviously the church, which I thought was a great spot for a church, due to public opposition, even after they got granted, didn't get to put it there, so I'm glad it's going to someone who's gonna care for the land as well as we want them to. PFAS, who owns the problem? That's my question, and it's a rhetorical question, but I think, you know, we live in a bowl like Tahoe's in a bowl. And, you know, keep Tahoe blue is their big tagline, and they have very restrictive things on landscaping and all sorts of stuff and putting chemicals in the water and all sorts of stuff. Arrowhead, we just kind of live here and do our thing, and that's the beautiful part. We all love this. But I think we all look around, we're in the big bowl. I don't know how many, I know there's lots of tributaries that come in and there's one that goes out. So all that sediment and all that stuff comes down in there. So we gotta look at ourselves if we own this. You know, I mean, I think they've tried to find it in the sewer lines for a year and a half now and can't find it. Okay, so it's probably all of us. You know, I mean, I know lily pads are disintegrating in the lake as we speak. I mean, you know, they talk about boat polishes and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, it seems like we should be working with authorities that are running the lake to see what the possibilities are to maybe put some signs up or do some things to say, hey, let's not do this stuff that's affecting us, because we know what's in PFAS. So I appreciate all your efforts to do what you guys are doing, and just say, you know, as a community member, we appreciate it, and, you know, maybe we're the problem. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any other members of the public?
Garen has his hand up.
Okay, Garen?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd just like to take a moment and just ask Mr. Byrne, legal counsel for LACSD. When you guys are in closed session, maybe you should counsel the board about the public comments and matters that pertain to LACSD. I don't know why Mr. Schultz comes once a month and talks about me and Ted Hayek and Arrowhead Woods Informed, and that has nothing to do with LACSD matters. So I don't know if that's permitted, or you can just come and talk about anything. But you know, Mr. Schultz keeps making disparaging comments, and then he leaves after 5 minutes. He should have more respect for the community in the LACSD to actually stick around and see what happens in the meeting, instead of coming in and reading his script and then leaving 5 minutes into the meeting. So that's just what I wanted to say for now. And then I had a question about the corporate parking yard. Are we going to talk about that later on, or is it going to be on the agenda, or no?
I mean, it's on the agenda. I think John was gonna talk about the financial aspect, but if it's not regarding the finances, maybe you could go ahead and ask a question.
It's actually related specifically to the finances of the corporate parking yard.
Well, let's wait till John's report then, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments from the public? No. All right, very good. Thank you. The next is the consent calendar. The following items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. We're going to act upon them at one time without discussion unless an item is withdrawn by a board member for questions or discussion. And we also have an opportunity for public comment on the consent calendar. Does any board member want to withdraw any matter from the consent calendar? No. Okay. Any member of the public have a comment on the consent calendar? No. All right. Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, not a roll call vote? Nope, very good. Okay, next we have Information and discussion items. First is Finance Manager's Report, John O'Brien.
Thank you, President Wurm. On page 12 of your board packet is my second quarter financial statements and investment report. The district's operating revenue for the through the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year is up approximately 2% over budget, while operating expenses are approximately 3% under budget. That being said, the one expense item that continues to be a bit of a wrench in the works is our water purchases, but of course that's due to PFAS issue. Excuse me. Outside of that, things were fairly routine for the quarter. One other item I wanted to mention was the requested updated expenditure figures related to the courtyard. As of last week, the district has expended $7.3 million against a $6.6 million budget, putting it approximately 11% over budget. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from the board?
How much more are we gonna spend? In your opinion?
Well, talking, I'd say 150,000.
That's it.
That's an estimate. I don't have,
No, I'm not
Everything,
asking
but yeah.
for specific.
yeah, I'd say 150,000.
It's not gonna be another million.
No, it will not be another million.
Okay, good.
Anything else? Questions, comments from the public?
Yeah, Garen has a hand up.
Garen,
I'm sorry.
Garen, go ahead.
Okay, so I had a question for Mr. O'Brien. The initial board meeting packet that discussed the corporate yard, it's from the 2018, 2019. I'm just gonna read it out so the board members that weren't around, they can, familiarize themselves with it. I'm gonna just read it. The total budgeted amount is $3 million, and this is included in the budget for fiscal year 2018, 2019, and 2019, 2020. The estimated construction cost was advertised at $3.8 million. The board may recall that the cost of the metal building is $1 million, which includes design, structural engineering, and coordination with the county. The funding will come from the Capital Improvement Fund, which is $1.05 million, and the Wastewater Capital Improvement Plan Fund, which is $1.95 million. So the initial budgeted amount was $3.0 million. And now we're at 7.3 million. So the question that I have for Mr. O'Brien, I'm going to reserve 1 minute for a follow-up question, but this question is for Mr. O'Brien. I'm looking at your financial statements. It looks like you guys are doing accounting tricks here. The corporate yard, LACSD has 3-digit numbers for every project that they ever spend money on. The corporate yard, it was originally project 253 and it was labeled corporate yard. Now on your finances, you have project 177. The project has been split up into little pieces. So now core construction is $6.7 million. That's project 177. And then there's a second project relating to the corporate yard. It's called finishing construction. That's $565,000. That's where Mr. O'Brien is getting the $7.3 million. So the question I have for Mr. O'Brien is, you're a CPA, you're the finance manager for LACSD. Did you break up the project into 2 different projects to make it seem less? And if it wasn't you, did somebody instruct you to break up the project into little tiny pieces? Second question for Mr. O'Brien, is there any other financial code, 3-digit code that relates to this project that is not in the $7.3 million total up to today? Those are my 2 questions for Mr. O'Brien. And then I'm reserving 1 minute for a follow-up question.
Do you have any other questions, Garen?
No, I want to wait to see what Mr. O'Brien says first.
Yeah, you have to ask all your questions at one time.
Is that what the Brown Act mandates?
That's our policy.
Yeah.
That's our policy here.
You got that policy written somewhere, or did you just cook it up right now?
That's our policy here.
Yeah, I could just say, Garen, this is a public comment period, so it's really the discretion of the board as to whether to answer your questions or not. I think the board's been very generous in that, but we try to get the questions out up front in the interest of time, and reasonable limits on time have been upheld by many, many courts, and it's usually a lot less than 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I still have 2 minutes remaining, so can Mr. O'Brien answer the question? The corporate yard project was initially listed as project 253 corporate yard. Suddenly this month in this board meeting, it suddenly morphed into 2 projects. So now it's core construction and then finishing construction. And did Mr. O'Brien make that accounting change, or did somebody instruct him to do it? That's my question. And what's the total? The real total? Thank you.
No one instructed me to break them apart. There are two projects that were independently approved by the board in the budget. And there are no other projects. Those are the two projects associated with the Corp Yard.
So there is no other expenditure whatsoever in LACSD, plan design, any kind of, architectural, fees, anything else, permitting. There is absolutely nothing else dollar-wise that pertains to the corporate yard. As of today, $7.3 million has been spent, and no other money on top of the $7.3 million has gone to the corporate yard in any way, shape, or form. Is that correct?
I think he answered your question, but I believe the answer, is that correct?
We have no other projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the initial project 177 was for the contractor, and so the second one is for, as we took over as the prime, and then we have a separate project for that. But there's no hiding it, because he obviously put both together in the report.
Okay, thank you, Garen. Any other persons wanting to comment? Okay. All right, any questions or comments for John, or any further comments you have after, or does that complete your report?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
yeah, that's it.
All right. Okay, very good. Thank you, John. And then next we have Matt, Operation Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Before you, beginning on page 29 is my operations manager's report. This report gives an update on water delivered in the current calendar year. So if you flip over to page 34, where I do the analysis, and not a whole lot, we're comparing January to January, or 1 month into this year, so everything's fairly similar. And it shows consumption slightly up 5% this January compared to last January. Lake draw is very similar, a little bit less this year. Wells to system are a little bit less. We have a couple wells down, hoping to get well 5 back up and online as of tomorrow. Clawa purchase is up versus last year. Last year, we did not begin purchasing any Clawa water until May. So like John mentioned, we're currently purchasing Clawa right now to blend down the PFAS in the drinking water system. And recycled water delivered is 0, as is typical for this time of year. So, the next page, I included some cool photos for the BAMF pump replacement project. And if you have that up, the top left photo is one of the pumps itself laying there prior to installation. The photo on the right there shows how they drop that pump in through the roof, through a hatch in the roof. Bottom left, we have 2 employees. That's Brett and Ricky, and they're basically working on the pump and setting the pump. And then the photo to the right, that's Bobby Martinez in the background, and Tony C, the supervisor, out getting his hands dirty, which he loves to do, installing another part on it's the flange there. So just to give you guys a little bit of backstory or a reminder on this, that procurement item was brought to the board a year ago, last February, and it was approved at that regular board meeting. We were given a lead time of September 2024 for delivery. And however, we did not receive the pumps and motors until January of this year. So the work was done on February 5th and 6th. And the pumping capacity of the new pumps versus the old pumps, we replaced 2 pumps and 2 motors. And the capacity increased about 75% based on the tag, from 350 gallons per minute per pump to 620 gallons per minute per pump. So we still need to go out and do like hydrant test, flow the hydrants to get an actual, to determine the actual increase in the area. And once we do that, I can report that back to you. I do also owe that to homeowners within the area. I've been in close contact with them this along the whole way. And so they were very happy to hear that. I have a couple other items that aren't on my report that I figured were worthy of reporting out on. One being the storm that we just experienced February 13th and 14th. It was a pretty good one. We got 3 rain gauges that we monitor, and the 3 rain gauges showed totals of 7 to 7.66 inches of rain within 24 hours. I can report out that we had only a few minor issues in the collection system, such as ragged pumps, and guys went out and handled that. That's typical with that kind of flow. We only had to hold a little bit of flow at the Willow Creek treatment plant, and Grass Valley treatment plant performed well. We had to staff the treatment plant overnight, a couple employees, and due to their hard work, came in the next day to a better situation than I was expecting. So that was really good. So hats off to all the employees. And the reason why we've been doing so well, you've heard me say this before, but it's all the work that's done throughout the year when the weather's good. These guys, the mechanical guys that work with the field ops guys, they clean these wet wells at least annually. We used to subcontract that out. We do it all in-house now. We just have a really good thing going. So the issues are very minimal, regardless the size of the storms. Next item I want to mention is the follow-up to last month's meeting. The district, that'd be myself, I reached out to schedule a meeting with the San Bernardino County Fire Department. The meeting scheduled for next week. It's at this point set up pretty informal. This might be the first of a few meetings going forward. I spoke with the local fire chief, Jason Serrano. He's a very nice guy. Looking forward to meeting him in person. He was happy that I reached out just to share contact information, and it was a great start. And so we're going to meet. We're going to share contact information, maps. We'll explain our pressure zones, hydro zones, answer any questions. They've been receiving a lot of questions and concerns like we had heard last month. So just we're going to see if there's anything we can do differently for coordination, preparedness, fire response. If there's any opportunity for improvement on either side. We're also going to discuss possible partnerships and training. We've worked with them in years past doing confined space training. So this will kind of open up the door to see if they're interested in doing that. And my last item to mention was today, myself and Matt O'Kelly, the wastewater operations supervisor, we met with a representative from the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board for just a routine annual inspection. We started down at the Hesperia Effluent Management Site. You hear me refer to that as our farm sometimes. We started down there and we toured Grass Valley Treatment Plant, and we didn't have time to do Willow Creek, so we'll do that another time. Inspection and everything went well as we anticipated it, and we'll see. We have a report coming out in the next couple of weeks that I can share the results with you, with everyone. And, that's what I have for my operations manager's report. If you have any questions about anything that I mentioned, I'd gladly take them.
Well, let me do any questions or comments from the board first. Okay.
Yeah, I got a question. In your meeting with the fire, Mr. Serrano, I think so.
Yes.
How many people are gonna be in that meeting?
At this point, it's gonna be him, at least one of his battalion chiefs. He was wanting to invite all 3, but we had to move the days around when we were talking, and the day we chose, all 3 might not be available. So it's gonna be the fire chief, 1 battalion chief, myself, Matt O'Kelly, the wastewater supervisor, Micah O'Connell, water operations supervisor, Nate Porter, Dustin's gonna sit in on it. And at this point, that's the meeting. We're just meeting at Bernina Water Treatment Plant. We discussed where should we meet. I mentioned that, it was either Station 91 or there. I thought the treatment plant would be good to where we could show them our SCADA system. We could show them maps like this that show pressure zones, and we could send them away with maps like that when we make copies. So that's where we're at, but I'm thinking and hoping that maybe this will just be the first of a few meetings where we can kind of break the ice, get to know each other, and like those that couldn't make it from their side, maybe they can come another time and just, just keep a ongoing working relationship with them is what we'd like to establish.
Maybe have a quarterly meeting or something.
Mhm.
They love donuts. So bring
Are you inviting the cops in too?
I am. I would also like to say, the work that you guys do in-house, it saves us so much money. People don't realize. And this might be off subject, but I think that has a lot to do with the breakup of the two that we had earlier on. The second half one was a lot of in-house cost.
That's right.
But that amount of money, it is high, mind you, I know it's high. But it is pennies compared to what we would pay if we hired contractors to come in and do the work that we do in-house. It's an immense savings to the ratepayers. And they don't realize how much in-house saves money. And they don't realize I would say the quality of job that we get in-house, because if it goes bad, we gotta fix it. So we do it right the first time. And you don't realize that, how much money that the employees here at LACSD save the ratepayers without any of us asking them to do it. They just do it because they know it's needed, and it helps our budget. We would not make budget a lot of times, I think, if we had to send everything out. We just wouldn't. So I just wanted to say that.
And in years past, the work was all contracted out, and now in the past few years, we've moved it in-house, or not me. Staff. Or didn't have anything to do with it.
And what I would also add, I wanted to add something else too, that was, when all this was voted on many years ago in 1819, whatever, John Wurm was very against that building. Very against it, and if you want to point fingers and say, we're all about wasting money, John was argumentative with everyone on the board about it, almost, and didn't want it built, it's just one of those things. Things cost a lot of money, and nothing goes down in price, especially building material and people's wages and things like that. It always goes up, so. There's no unfortunate to us. We're gonna get it done, and we're gonna have a good place that will last a long time, so. It's the price of doing business, so that's all I can say.
And we'll get to the public in a minute, but Matt, could you comment, because before the meeting, we're talking about Valentine's Day a few years ago, 2019. Can you compare the storm and the district's performance in 2019 to our one just a couple of weeks ago?
I don't have the numbers. Of the
Right,
data
I'm not
as
asking
far-
for that,
Yeah,
yeah.
as far as like
Yeah.
rainfall totals, I know we kind of briefly talked about it, like every storm is you got so many different variables. Like back then we had snow and then rain and snow, and that makes it a nightmare. But the difference is we had a few different spills in that Valentine's Day of 2019. We had a discharge from our treatment plant that lasted multiple days. We had a spill from our largest lift station 33, and we had a spill in the collection system in the main line heading towards Willow Creek Treatment Plant. And again, so many different variables there. So I would have to sit down and do some hard comparisons, but we're very thankful that this one wasn't like that.
We had two very intense storms, about 6 years apart. And I would say the district's performance on our, discharge was much better. Not saying we did something wrong before, but it was better this time.
Well, we made,
We made a lot of strides.
Yeah, we made a lot of
progress.
Yeah, we made a lot of improvements in the collection system. Like I mentioned, we met with the representative from Lahontan today. We discussed the storm that we just went through, and he was asking how we did, and I basically explained to him that yeah, from everything we've seen, all the improvements we've made, and again, we're gonna make another one down there at the farm as an action item, here for you guys tonight to consider. And, yeah, he was, happy to hear that. He was asking us what our thoughts were about complying with the CDO final standard, which is June of 2026. They had asked us formally that question, year and a half, 2 years ago. We responded formally with a letter. At that point, we were able to compare, if you recall, it was Tropical Storm Hillary. I believe it was Hurricane Hillary. It was like Tropical Storm by the time it hit here. We got about the same amount of rain, if I recall, 7 inches, but in about 12 hours. And we did well also that time. And so we were able to use that as the case study because it needs to be a 100-year event, and that event was right on the fringe of a 100-year event. Yeah, we feel like we're doing much better. Every storm we get better, and every improvement we make, we see positive benefits and difference in the system. So.
Any other questions, comments from the board before we go to the public? No? Okay, Michael?
Yeah, on that note, which you stated, there are many of us that are well aware of the work and the credibility and the confidence that LACSD has. And as far as the money goes, watching that also. So we tip our caps to y'all. And if it was the other way, we wouldn't tip our caps to you. But we've been watching y'all for 2+ years, and you guys have gone through hell. You guys all come up smelling like roses. Okay, I was talking about with the PFAS as far as last March.
Well, what, that'll be the next item.
Is that the next
Yeah,
item?
that's the next item.
Okay.
Okay, so any other comments on Matt's report before we get to the feedback?
Nothing online, nothing out there.
Okay, all right. Matt?
On PFAS?
Yeah.
All right, let me shift gears here. PFAS update that begins on page 36 of your packet. So if you go to page 38, that's where I have the you just skip the map there, have some updates on what's gone on. We do have some new results available. So we took a sample, I mentioned at the last meeting. It was our quarterly blended treated sample that is how we determine compliance with the California response level. So we took the sample, we got the results that came in at 7.1 for PFOA, which lowers the locational quarterly running annual average to 8.1. The response level is 10. So we are below that, and so we're happy with what we're seeing with the blending that we're doing. And again, we've backed it off to about 100 gallons a minute, and hoping if we can get a couple of these wells back online, we can back it off completely. But so we took a sample on the 13th, you'll see here, February 13th, the Grass Valley wastewater influence sample. When we started getting that hard rain, this was suggested by one of the consultants, Battelle, that we had been working with in the past. We saved a couple kits, and they suggested that if we get a good rain event like this, if we could try to capture the influent flow, kind of a first flush is what we were trying to catch. So it's the first real big storm. We had one a few weeks prior, but we weren't anticipating 3 inches in that first storm where it was supposed to be 1 to 1.5. So anyways, that's what this sample is. We'll report out on the results when we get those. Aside from that, biologists from Chambers Group, they completed a site visit at Bernina on January 31st to basically look at the CEQA process and assess any potential impacts or environmental impacts for the new building that's got to go there to house the new PFAS units. District met with NTW, the design team, on February 13th to discuss comments on the 60% design. And they actually, a few staff members met with them today via Zoom when I was down at the farm to discuss a few more comments in anticipation of the design team wrapping up 90% design of the PFAS treatment for both Bernina and Cedar Glen. And we're hoping to maybe see that this week is what they were hopeful for that. And lastly, there's a document here that didn't make my packet. The intent was for it to be included, but anyways, we've made copies of this PFAS and pipe rehab. It's laid out, and I believe there's some for the public here, and it's also on the website underneath the board correspondence packet. So this is a follow-up to the question last month, which was a great question. Is there any PFAS in the slip lining product? And Scott, the engineering manager here, went and dug up this article from Municipal Sewer and Water Magazine, March of 2022. You're welcome to read it, but basically it sums up that in resins and dry tube construction process for cast in place pipe or slip lining, as you hear us call it, they're all PFAS free. So
Good news.
So with that said, that's everything in my PFAS report. So I'll gladly take any questions.
Questions, comments from the board?
No.
Public? Michael?
Yeah, basically back with what Mr. Rundle was stating, where it's ourselves possibly. We do know that the terrain throughout since, we found out PFAS was created since the 40s or whatever. But we've been building here and construction, the whole shop, they all have PFAS, some type of substance in them too, from the roof, so on and so forth. We feel like already explained from the 70s, 80s, 90s, so on and so forth. Our question is, since the rain comes down, and of course it's a bowl like Mr. Rundle stated, whatever is out onto our terrain, where I used to be a full-time painter, and all substances can come from the terrain, from the plastic bottles, so on and so forth, into the bowl, which is our lake. What we're thinking about now is we know that part, but as far as like last March, Alan Cates came in here, he was the president of ALA at the time. And he was here to work with LACSD as far as concerning the PFAS. So since we're talking about ourselves, where we're creating it in one form or another, our question is, has ALA done any type of mitigation to assist us with the PFAS in our lake where we retrieve our drinking water? Because we do know that there's a multiple amount of substances that the lake has in it, from lily pads, boat polish, so on and so forth, old decks. And if so, is ALA or LACSD going to institute what is going to be allowed into our lake? Because in our common sense opinion, okay, you guys are doing everything you can. We've seen it, we've researched it. I mean, through a needle in a haystack. But now our lake itself, where we retrieve our drinking water, now we have certain materials in our drinking water, in our lake, that has PFAS. And it's not a small thing to talk about, but lily pads, boat polish, so on and so forth. If there is no rain, there's not going to be the terrain that contains the PFAS to go into the bowl, which is our lake. But state during the summertime, there's no rain, but the lake itself is continuing to provide PFAS materials. And you guys are providing to take out the PFAS in our drinking water. So it would be common knowledge to, instead of going 3 steps forward and then all of a sudden 5 steps back, we ourselves, as far as the Arrowhead Woods property owners who own that lake, our drinking water is our priority. That comes first. Second comes the lake itself, which we all enjoy. So our question is there something that you and ALA can institute amongst yourselves where it dampens the ability to continue with PFAS material in our lake, which is where we retrieve our drinking water? That's a question.
Any other questions, or?
That's the only question.
Okay. And Joe, you can correct me or, comment, but I don't think LACSD has any jurisdiction to tell people what they can do or not do on the lake, as well as the surrounding areas. What we have to do, and we're required to do and are doing, is to make sure that the drinking water is within the standards. So even if people said, okay, we're going to remove all PFAS related materials or activities, I think we'd still have to build our facilities to remove the PFAS, because we couldn't guarantee that's not going to happen in the future. So and as far as what ALA is doing, I think you'd have to ask them, but I'm not sure they have any jurisdiction to control what goes into the lake either.
Yeah, you got it right.
Well, I add a little something. I think I showed both of you. I had gone down to the lake right after the storm. Especially by the launch ramp there. And you have never seen so much plastic trash in the water. People. I wouldn't put it on the boats and the lily pads and things like that. There was an incredible amount of water bottles floating. Water bottles, plastic bags, people's trash. And I may be wrong in this, but I don't think I'm too off. You know, when you put your trash out on Sunday and they pick it up on Tuesday. And your trash gets knocked over, everything, it's a big bowl, like I said, everything ends up in the lake. ALA, I don't think it's impossible, because nothing's impossible, but it would be almost impossible for them to monitor everything going in the lake unless they put a net around the lake. I mean, there was so much trash that day, it was disgusting to look at it. And people at ALA were scooping it out of there as best as they could, I was watching them.
Yeah,
But they can only do so much, so it's up to the residents. You know, watch what you're doing with your trash.
we've talked, what you just now stated, something which, we just found out last week, is that they're actually making things that do not contain PFAS no more, due to the Environmental Protection Agency, such as bulk polished stone and so forth.
Okay.
But it hasn't been advertised or promoted, for people to hear about. And I'm sure that us residents would gladly go ahead and veer to the right, where it's like, well, what are the ones that do not contain PFAS material that we can use in our lake?
Well, it's a law in California now in many restaurants. That they're getting rid of the plastic to-go cups or the containers. There's different things that are made out of bamboo as an alternative, different things like that. But it's very expensive compared to plastic.
Now that I didn't ask.
And when you're in the business of making money, people cut corners. That's what they do, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Garen has his hand up.
Garrett,
Yeah.
Garrett, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, page 38 on the report. Page 38 lists, the initial testing. So just so I understand, the information, the Grass Valley wastewater treatment plant, specifically the influent. So that's the sewer that's going into the plant. A sample was taken on February 13th, 2025, but the results are not yet available.
Correct.
Okay. When will those results be available? You know?
They typically take 2 to 3 weeks. So, yeah, it just depends, 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, and then my next question is, you're doing testing for the blended water, January 14th, 2025. So that's the water that enters Bernina, gets treated, and then you test the finished water. Previously, you guys were testing the lake, the source water that's going into Bernina. Are you guys testing the different parts of the lake, or that's been completely stopped?
Well, we are required to test the lake still, for the raw influent of any treatment plant that's online. So we are still doing that, yes. It's on a different cycle, so these are quarterly. So I believe we're taking the samples you're speaking of actually this week. So those are the second month, 5th month, 8th month. So we're just trying to keep everything on track because we started taking this sample. This is a voluntary sample, this one right here that we took on January 14th. This is so we can show compliance with the California response level. So the required samples technically per the order are the raw ones that you're speaking of, and those will be taken this week, and those are taken quarterly still, yes.
Okay, how many different, is it just at the intakes? Or is it different parts of the lake?
Just at the intake is that's what we're required to do, and we take raw wells, the raw wells that are online. So that's what we're required to do. We backed off a lot of the voluntary sampling because, as you know, we got very mixed results. It was we weren't getting the answers we were looking for. So we're going to focus on removing the PFAS that's in the lake.
So you're testing the lake in one spot where the intake's gonna be? That's where you're testing. But you haven't done it yet. It's coming up.
If both treatment plants were online, we'd be testing both raw influents. That would be Emerald Bay and North Bay. But no, we've been testing those. Cedar Glen's been offline, as you know, since last year. So that one hasn't been tested since it's been offline. Bernina's been tested every quarter. I could go back. It's on
46.
page 46. Page 46, shows all the raw water samples right there, and they're done quarterly. So,
So North Bay, the last one would be November 6th, 2024. That's the last one.
correct.
Okay. And then my final question is the recycled water. You guys were testing the recycled water that's going to the country club. Has that been stopped, or are you continuing to test the recycled water for PFAS?
Well, currently, the recycled water is not getting delivered to the country club. And when we do begin to deliver it, we can have an internal discussion, but at this point, we're not required to take any of those samples.
When was the last test of the recycled water?
That's another question. Are we keep?
It's in this package. I would have to take a look. And the recycled water sample we did previously take was voluntary, so. But it's in
It's on our
here.
website.
It's not in the packet.
It's on our website.
Okay, any other questions from the public? All right, thank you, Garen. Okay. Strategic plan update, Catherine.
Mr. President, so periodically we update our strategic plan, and we have this scorecard of different priorities and goals. And so this is just a summary of those goals from last year. So just a few highlights. We had 100% drinking water compliance in 2024 and very few spills from wastewater system. As Matt mentioned, we, number 5 of A, we are working towards increasing fire flow in certain areas where it's lower than we would like. That's mostly in the hydro zones. And so as he showed, recently had BAMP completed, and we're continuing in those efforts as well. One area we would like to improve is our wastewater effluent quality. So we are continually looking at making improvements in that area, and we'll come back to you. We have seen some improvement with Micro-C. That's helped us with the methanol. It's really difficult to dose. Matt could tell you more if you are curious. Also, we've been able to increase our non-operating revenue. John O'Brien has done an awesome job with our interest income. We've also, looks like we're going to get funding for the PFAS treatment and for the rainforest system. Another area we need to improve is increasing our groundwater supply. Although we have several projects in the works, they're taking longer than we would like. So we're going to be pushing those this year. And lastly, but really most important, we had 0 lost days due to workplace accidents. So safety is #1 concern. Thank you, Dustin.
Very good, Dustin. Are there any questions, comments? Anybody from the board? Public comments, questions? Michael?
Yeah, before I leave, I just wanted to ask a question, wondering if LACSD, the organization itself, know how credible and how outstanding you guys are to our community, and to keep on keeping on. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other further comments? Garen?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Michael should stick around. He'll miss all the fun.
Pardon me?
Okay, that's enough. No, we're not getting back and forth here. Okay, any other public comment?
Oh.
That's it? Okay, all right. Thank you. General Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just a few things in here. Matt talked about the slip lining material. We'll have a couple projects coming your way, one tonight. We're also completing the Lake Main slip lining with the one last legs that Scott's working on bringing that to you soon. We're also working on with BB&K is helping us to formulate a multi-year project to help knock out the older sewer system in a more expedient manner.
You're gonna say older,
The older
like Rim
sewer
Forest
system.
and Cedar Glen or?
No, just certain
Crestwood.
areas around
Okay.
in the woods
Okay.
where the sewer system is the
Okay.
oldest, yeah. There's an update in here on the ALA lake valve situation, so I'll keep you updated on that as we go along. Also just some answers to some questions from last month about hydrant maintenance is in here. And then we are also moving forward with a solar project. The RFP is contained in this report, so we'll be issuing that tomorrow.
Very good.
And, oh, I January PFAS rebates. And the last update I have is today, the DWR announced allocation increasing to 35% for state water project contractors, up from 20%. And before that, it was 5 and 15. So we're seeing improved conditions in the state due to recent weather.
Very good, thank you. Questions, comments from the board? Public?
Aaron has his hand up.
Garrett?
Yeah. Something was not discussed on the report, manager's report, hydrant maintenance. I'm gonna read your paragraph. There were multiple questions from the public and the last board.
We can all read it, and your voice is kind of breaking up, but do you have a question or comment about what's in there?
Yeah, one of the board members last month wanted to know how many hydrants were inspected and if you have a log. A very brief paragraph here says that you have a log. So my question is, how many hydrants were checked last month? How many hydrants were checked in 2024? And does this log contain that information?
Is that
Is any other questions?
No, that's it. What's the info on the hydrants?
so? We do have detailed logs of hydrants, and Nathan Porter does report on that every quarter. So in last month's report, there is his quarterly update, and it does show the number of hydrants that they service. So, I mean, and it's in the last quarter had the full. So, and I think they had the full year for 2024. So we can refer back to that if we need to.
Okay, can we bring that at the next meeting then?
Sure.
Okay, all right, so we'll try to get that for the next meeting, okay, Karen?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or public? Okay, very good, that completes our information items, I believe, and next we're gonna move to action items. Number 11, I believe. Procurement of materials. Catherine, and again, this is one of those matters where we're buying the materials and I think having our.
First, we have number 11.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's
I was
okay.
looking at 12. Okay.
Yeah.
This is Scott Slipline.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Before you is an action item to consider approving a contract for slip lining, project number 266, and file a notice of exemption finding that the project is categorically exempt in accordance with California Environmental Quality Act. Some background on this project. This capital improvement project comes from our field operations department, and they discovered these issues during routine maintenance. This project consists of 7 locations with inflow, infiltration, root intrusion, and various conditions of pipe. This project is in compliance with our current CDO through the State Water Quality Control Board. The project consists of installing approximately 1,015 linear feet of cured in place pipe to existing 6-inch and 8-inch diameter AC, clay, and concrete sewer main, including pre-cleaning, closed circuit television inspection, locating and marking 10 existing laterals for reinstatement, and 3 top hat lateral installations. The reason for our recommendation, we went out to bid on January 16th, and on February 13th, we received 2 bids, with in situ form being the lowest bid at $197,261. And the engineer's estimate was $190,000. In situ form has done a lot of work for us in the past. They've done a lot of lake main. And Trinity is gonna be a sub-consultant on this, so we're pretty comfortable with this group. Fiscal impact, the cost associated with the approval of this item is $197,262 plus 15% contingencies of $29,589 for a total of $226,225. The total project budget is 1.5 million. And that's for a lot, this is just a smaller project within other larger projects. And it's included in the fiscal year 24-25 budget. The total project cost is estimated at $240,659, which includes $226,225 for construction and $14,434 for engineering, inspection, and other related costs. Funds will be provided by the wastewater capital improvement plan, Fund 210. And with that, it's district staff recommendation that the board of directors award a contract for the construction of the slip lining, slip lining project number 266 to In Situ Form Technologies for the low and responsible bid of $197,262. Authorize the general manager to execute the contract and authorize the general manager to approve change orders for the project as required in the field during contract time for an amount not to exceed 15% of the original contract amount. So with that, that's her recommendation, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
Questions? Questions, comments? Public?
Darren has his hand up.
Okay, Garrett.
Yeah, I got a question for Mr. Schroeder on this map. Page 66, there's a map. So Mr. Schroeder said that there were 7 locations that were getting repaired. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there's 7
There's
locations.
7 locations. So Yukon, Domway, Annandale, are these 7 locations totaling up to 1,000 feet of repair? It's dispersed within these 7 locations?
It's 1,015 linear feet, and
Where is that one location, or is it in all these 7 locations combined?
I mean, they're different sections of different areas of pipeline that need to be slip lined. So yeah, it's not all one section, if that's the question.
Okay,
yes,
so this 1,015, it's not one location, or it's varying locations that add up to 1,015?
That's correct.
Okay, do you have video inspection footage of these 7 locations where you said there's concern for cracks and that sort of thing? Is there something that would trigger you to focus on these 7 locations?
Primarily, it's infiltration from rain events. Some of these are under driveways that can't be repaired by district staff. So that's why we opted to do slip lining on some of these. Some of these has some depths that are a concern. So yeah.
Okay, so you've inspected when a plumber's called out, there's an issue and you call them out, they don't just go to random spots. You guys have video inspection footage of these 7 locations that are problematic, that these gentlemen are gonna go out and slip line.
Yes, I mean, we inspection, that's how we find these, problems. We inspect a lot of our system, and as soon as we find issues, we make the necessary repairs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions, comments from the public?
No.
We'll entertain a motion to approve the contract and find that it is exempt with the sequel.
I'll move to consider projects 266 and following.
I'll second
Roll call vote or not necessarily? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so the contract is approved and we find that it is exempt for sequel. Thank you. All right, next is item number 12. Catherine,
that.
Or Nathan.
Actually,
or which one?
Nathan.
Okay, well, you're both on here. So.
Yeah. Okay,
So
so
Catherine Porter or Nathan Cerri, which one is it?
I'll do this.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. So, real quick, just going back to the kind of projects that we do in-house. Matt was talking about our farm down there where, everything kind of goes down to. I'll give a little bit of background information on it first, and then I'll go ahead and read this, but, we have a section of 8-inch piping left over down there. Trying to eliminate all 8-inch pipe for the from Grass Valley out to our farm there. So upsizing that would help increase capacity and ultimately help with outflow from Grass Valley. So something we want to do in-house. So we want to consider approving procurement for materials for the farm outfall pipeline upsize. It is recommended that the board of directors approve the procurement of materials for the farm outfall pipeline upsize. This for the project from Orange County Water Company for their low and responsible quote of $71,627.89. The reason for this recommendation, at the beginning of February, district staff contacted pipe suppliers for a quote to supply pipe, gate valves, and appurtenances, thank you. It was there, I just couldn't say it, I'm sorry. To be included in the farm outfall pipeline upsize project to be completed by district staff. The district staff received the following quotes from Windwater, $71,627.89. The second was from Western Water Works Supply Company for $72,415.22. Core and Main for $92,005.17. Background information, this project will replace an upsized piping, gate valves, and all the stuff that goes with it between the Hesperia farm valve. I can't do it. I it's all day in my head and now I don't know what, I'm sorry, guys. So between the Hesperia farm valve house, we have our valve house down there where it houses like our control valves, where it comes in as 12-inch and then it leaves there as an 8-inch out to our percolation ponds. Each pond has an 8-inch feed going into it off of one 8-inch line. We want to upsize that to the size of the 12-inch coming into the pump house and 12 all the way through into the 4 8-inch ponds. So that will give us quite a bit of increased capacity there. It's decent sized bottleneck, and that will be the kind of the last of the 8-inch stuff that we have found that we know of. So fiscal impact, the cost associated with this item's approval is $71,627.89. The pipe suppliers have said that they are expecting a tariff increase of 4 to 8%, so we wanted to put that in there. Hopefully, we don't have to do that, but wanted to make you guys aware of that possible increase. This will be funded by the wastewater capital improvement plan, Fund 210. It is estimated that the district staff will save approximately $500,000 by completing this work in-house.
That's significant.
This will be completed by our field, yeah. So our field operations department will do this along with mechanical maintenance staff, so. It'll be great learning experience for everybody as well.
Yeah.
We've done stuff like this in the past, but we do have newer guys, so. Our staff is excited to take this project on.
Very good. We're excited to have you do it.
Environmental impact, this project is categorically exempt from California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. Under Title 14 of the California Code of Regulations, Section 15301, for existing facilities, Class 1. It is exempt from CEQA review under Class 1 because it consists of minor alterations of existing public structures, facilities, mechanical equipment, or topographical features involving negligible or no expansion of existing former use. Attached is the quote for wind water. They keep this quote on that. One thing I wanted to add is that it's 1,360 feet of pipe that we'll be replacing, along with about 5 valves. That's all I have. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board?
Yeah, I got one. You mentioned tariffs. If we approve this tonight and it goes, how quickly can we grow through it and dodge the tariff?
The problem is trying to find a spot for all this material. So there's a bit of planning. We're a little nervous about putting it down there at the farm when nobody's there watching all this stuff. So we wanted to kind of order it when we were getting closer to actually starting the project. But we could always look into trying to figure out how to house that
So
material
if it's,
to avoid this cost.
did you say the tariff is like, what was it, 4%? Is that what
They
you said?
said 4 to 8%.
So what's 4 to 8%, would you think money wise? Compared to hiring a guard to sit down there and watch it?
And there's always a possibility of maybe
Because I would
renting
think
like a
I would-
bin or something.
I would buy it as quick as possible if we can save money. Store it, just a security guard doesn't cost that much.
Yeah,
Can you buy it and have them hold it?
that's a good question. I could definitely ask them that and see how long we can get away with
I just
doing
think we
that.
should get it as soon as we can.
I will definitely look into all of that and see what the best route is. Yeah, if we can avoid that, I'll do my absolute best to make sure that doesn't happen.
Any other questions, comments from the board, public?
Garen, got her hand up.
Garen?
Yeah, if the board takes a look at the invoice, the tariff's gonna be on PVC. And on the invoice, the PVC is $51,000. So a 5% tariff is basically $2,500. That's the difference in price. It's not a tariff on the whole entire invoice, it's a tariff on PVC. The United States imports PVC, and that's what the tariff's for, if it ends up happening at all. So I don't suggest you guys hire a security guard to sit there and watch the PVC.
Any other questions or comments, Garen?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the public?
No.
Okay. All right, we'll entertain a motion for the purchase and to save 500,000.
I move that we accept.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, contract's approved.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nathan. All right. That concludes our action items. There is closed session items. I want to announce I'm going to recuse myself because I attend Church of the Woods. So I'm recusing myself from the closed session item for that reason. And Vice President Boydston will be taking over.
And I'll just announce the board will go into closed session for the item that is stated on the agenda, conference real property negotiators for the APN number listed.
Okay, Right, we'll be going
Yeah.
into closed session and Steve will be handling the rest.
No expected reporting.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for everybody coming. George, thank you.